All right, South Campus. What is up, man? It feels good in here. What's up in the overflow? Come on, everybody here. Let's welcome the overflow crowd. There's some people in the next theater. Got to get here early. If we've never met before, my name is Jonathan, and my wife Natasha and I are the lead pastors here at Experience Church. Love what we get to do. Love that we get to spend time with you not just each weekend, but we're doing life together. And man, like I said, it feels good in here. It's a good atmosphere in here. You guys are leaning in. And I was watching, admittedly, I'm not a giant CFL fan. I support because it's local. But even to say, I watched my first Stamps game of the season last night. And so that's pretty supportive. But it was like, here's the thing. If you're a CFL fan, you're crazy. Okay? There are no moderate CFL fans. If you're a CFL fan, you're a crazy fan. There are no people that just like casually like, oh yeah, I'm a fan of the Stamps. No. If you're a CFL fan, you probably have Stamps jerseys. You might have a Stamps tattoo. You might like, and so I'm watching the game, and every single play, the place is going nuts. Like every play, there's people with like the cowbells and the noisemakers and people out there indoctrinating their kids. They got all their faces are red and stuff. Kids don't even have a choice. They're just going to be Stamps fans. That's what Stamps parents do. They're all out there, hey! So there's so much anticipation with every play. Like I was impressed because it felt like, even though they lost, it felt like people were ready for something amazing to happen every time the ball was snapped. And I just want to encourage you, that's a great way to come to church. That's a great way to get together on a weekend, just to come into this space and be like, man, I don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to happen. I don't know exactly what God's going to speak to me, but I know he's going to say something. I don't know exactly what's going to happen in worship. I don't know exactly what's going to happen in my conversations, but something is going to happen. It's a great thing to come to church with some expectation and anticipation. Ephesians 3:20 says God wants to do immeasurably more than we could ask or imagine. Wants to do immeasurably more. So I just want to encourage you, not just today, but every day. Would you just lean in? I mean, you're doing it with your worship this morning. You're leaning in to what God wants to do. But that level of expectation is so important because your expectation will determine your experience. If you don't expect much, you're not going to experience much. But man, the room is full of expectation today. It's a good day to be in church. We're going to talk about more. This is our Move for More season, more. To have increase or an abundance, to have more. What does it mean for us to have more? Come on, let's pray together. God, thank you that we're here today. Thank you that you're here today. And when you're here, anything is possible. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Man, this is just what happens. At the end of the summer, I talk about my vacations a lot, okay? So I've got vacation stories till Christmas. And vacation, obviously interesting time, forces you to spend a lot of concentrated time with your family, which can be challenging. Not for me, of course, love my family. But here's the thing with vacation for us, is vacation forces us to do a lot of travel in my vehicle, okay? And my wife has no confidence in my ability to choose, select, or upkeep vehicles. No confidence whatsoever. I mean, she's got a minivan, and so she likes to play it safe. People play it safe, never change the world. So for all you minivan people out there, that's fine. Do your reliable, safe thing, okay? That's fine. I respect it to a point. But I like to live on the edge a little, and so I buy cheap, big vehicles that are prone to break down. That's what I do. And I mean, she's not totally crazy because my primary criteria when selecting a vehicle, like first and foremost, is color and appearance. And then we start to look at how does it drive? Does it get good gas mileage? Like those are things that I generally figure out after I've purchased. But, so we head out on vacation and we have to take my vehicle because it tows our trailer. And so we're headed. And it's like from the very beginning, we're starting our trip, and she's bringing all this negativity into the vehicle. Because it's almost like if the vehicle fails, she wins, okay? So she's like, we're not even out of the city, and she's like, is it supposed to make that noise? I'm like, babe, your minivan is so wimpy. It doesn't make noises like that. This is a truck. It makes manly, big, muscular noises. That's what that is. She's like, is it supposed to shake like that when we're turning? I'm like, stop it. You're hearing things. You're feeling things. Your equilibrium's off. It's not shaking. It's pulsing around the turn. Like she's just got this negative vibe the whole time. And so we're going, and we're headed to British Columbia. We're going through the Rocky Mountains, okay? We get to like the peak. Like we're at the highest point of the Rocky Mountain Pass. And my truck is pulling our trailer. Things are going like amazing. Then all of a sudden, it's like she willed it. Like, I don't believe that you can really jinx something. Like, I'm not going to preach that. But if you could jinx something, she definitely jinxed it because everything was good. Then we get to the pinnacle of achievement for my vehicle and the trailer, and all of a sudden, things start going crazy. Smoke starts coming out from under the hood. It's overheating. The levels are all freaking out. And she, you know what? It's not like she's not like interceding for us. It will be safe and things will blow up. She's like, I told you. You should have had my dad help you pick out a vehicle. Is there a worse thing a woman can say to her husband than my dad? Just stop it. I will figure out the vehicle. And so we pull over. I mean, it's like mountain, us, highway, death. Like that's where we are in the journey, okay? And so we pull over and I open it up, and thank God I was able to get enough reception that I got some redemption because I looked up an article, found out that this particular make and model, like, it doesn't matter who it is, all of them have this issue, okay, where if you're pulling, like, these are the exact things that are in the article. If you're pulling a heavy load through a mountain pass in severe heat with the air conditioning on, the vehicle will overheat. I was like, they all do it. So we just had to turn off the AC. It was fine. But while we were stopped, I got my windows, like, just a little bit down, you know, everyone's melting inside, we're airing it out, so it's all getting cool. We're about to take off, so roll the window up, close the hood, start the vehicle. This bug comes and goes on my window. This bug was not playing. When you hear an insect land on your vehicle, it's a big insect. Like when the insect is coming in and it's got to get clearance from air traffic control to park itself. So it comes in. It's on the window of my car. I brought a picture of this. So this is it. It's a long-horned beetle. Okay, it's a long-horned beetle, everybody. Like there's Satan, then longhorn beetles that he rides. He rides those things. That's how he gets from place to place. Satan mounts up on a longhorn beetle and rides. Okay, so this is one of these things jumps onto the car. So that's disgusting. You can get rid of it. So we all, like, when I say we all, I mean, like, I noticed it the most. So I was like, ah! Like, I'm freaking out. And so everyone else is kind of freaking out. But I did the noble thing. After I screamed, I just like banged the window and we drove off. And eventually his death claws let go of the window and we were free from his attack. What I didn't know was that during our rest stop, some of his friends had gotten into the vehicle. Okay? And so we're driving. We're like 2 minutes down the road. And my 5-year-old's sitting, she sits kind of back, like in like SWAT range. So she's kind of back to my right, so I can get her if I need to. And she's like, ah, 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 ah. I'm like, honey. And she starts screaming, but she's not moving. There's something on me! There's something on me! And so, of course, we can't really see what's going on. And as, like, the driver and the navigator, because I don't get a lot of help on road trips, kind of doing everything, driving. And she's not here. It's okay. And so I'm driving, and I'm like, okay, we got to pull over. So we pull over, and I can't really see what's up. But now we pull over, and I turn around and take a look. There's a longhorn beetle on her shoulder, kind of just rubbing her neck. And so, like, she's losing her marbles, but she's not moving. She's like, ah! And then my super helpful kids in the back, they're like, what's wrong with Zara? What's wrong? And then they look up, and they see it. And I'm like, give me, yeah. But then they lose it. They're like, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God. Like, everybody's freaking out. So then they're like, Zara, it's massive. It's on you. So she's like, ah! Jesus! And so everybody unbuckles. She's trying to crawl out of her seat like my other kids. So I grab a flip-flop, and I jump to the back, and I start slapping my 5-year-old with a flip-flop, trying to kill the longhorn devil bug, and I miss it. It falls onto the ground. So then we are playing, 6 of us playing musical chairs in an SUV, trying to get away from the spawn of Satan. I have never killed anything as much as I killed that bug. I finally got it. I was so desperate, I grabbed a piece of paper, and I trapped it under paper, and I punched the paper for like 10 minutes, and they were like, Dad, is you okay? I'm like, it's not okay. I'm going to keep you guys safe. I got you. You can trust your daddy. And I just pounded the paper until the beetle was there was no chance of resurrection. There was no reincarnation. There's nothing. It was so dead. It was a crisis. It was like full on crisis mode. It was crazy. It's funny how crisis makes you do weird things. Crisis makes people do crazy things. Crisis pushes people to the limit. There's a story in Mark chapter 5 of a couple people who are in crisis. I actually shared a couple thoughts from this story at Revival Night a few weeks ago, but the scripture stuck with me. I just kept reading it and going back to it, and I kept thinking, okay, God, maybe there's more here. And as it kept speaking to me, I thought, hey, maybe there's more here to speak to all of us. So I want to start in Mark chapter 5. I'm out of breath, guys. Verse 21. A couple people in crisis. It says, when Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, my little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live. So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed around him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. The first person in our story is a man named Jairus. Jairus was a leader in the synagogue. He was an important person in the spiritual community, in the Jewish community. He'd be like a pastor. He was well respected. He was in good standing with all the people. He's got a crisis. His daughter is dying. He needs Jesus. Jesus is on his way to deal with the crisis that Jairus finds himself in. As Jesus is on his way to deal with the crisis, he encounters a woman. Now, this woman, the Bible says, has been subject to bleeding for 12 years. I'm not going to unpack everything that means, but generally, a woman is only subject to bleeding for 1 week a month. 12 years. 624 weeks of bleeding. We got 2 very different people. In fact, to say, they're very different is almost understating how polar opposite. They could not be more different, these 2 individuals. Jairus was a man. The woman was a woman. We know his name because Jairus was distinguished and he was respected. We don't know her name because she was despised and rejected. He works in the synagogue. She's not even allowed to set foot in the vicinity. People come to see Jairus all the time for counsel, for support, to talk things through. Like, people are drawn to him. People are repulsed and repelled by her. Jairus runs and officiates religious ceremonies. This woman is cast out of any possible religious setting or gathering. Jairus has a family, a wife, a kid, a home. He lives with them. He enjoys their presence and their company. This woman, at the time that she would have been diagnosed with her condition, would have been forced into divorce, would by law not be able to have any contact with her husband or her kids. If she makes a meal, they can't eat it. If she sits on a chair, they can't sit down after her. These people could not be more different. They are so different. But they have this in common. They're both in crisis. It is so fascinating to me because here's the thing. We're talking about having more, and you don't need crisis to have more of Jesus, but sometimes you need a crisis to realize how deficient you are in and of yourself. See, and that's what really ties these 2 characters together. It's not even the crisis. It's the fact that crisis has pushed them to the point where they both are ready to realize and acknowledge that I am not enough. I'm deficient. I don't have enough. Neither of these characters have what it takes to navigate the situation in front of them. They don't have what it takes to get through what life has thrown at them. He can't heal his daughter. She can't stop the bleeding. They do not have enough. They've been thrust into crisis, and they're left standing, thinking, waiting, knowing, I need something else if I'm going to get through. Our deficiencies are what level the playing field. Deficiencies really, even in humanity, are our great equalizer. See, it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. If you can't have water, at some point, you'll die if you're deficient. It doesn't matter how rich you are or how poor you are. If you can't get oxygen into your lungs, if you're deficient of air, you will eventually die. This is one of the reasons I love gas stations. Anybody else? I love the smell. I love the smell of gas. I know it's weird, but since I was a kid, probably smelled too much of it. But you know what I like about gas stations? I noticed this just yesterday. I stopped at the gas station by my house. It was filling up, and I watched a car come through that was probably $150,000. Nice car. Amazing car. And they pump gas. That car drives away. The car that pulled up behind it might have been $500 on Kijiji. I see, but here's what's interesting. Different value, different function, different level of performance, attracted to different people attracted to them for different reasons, same source. Levels the playing field. They both need fuel from the pump if they're going to go anywhere. They both need the same thing. I mean, if they don't, it doesn't matter how much you paid for your car. If you don't put gas in it, it is as useless as the cheap car without gas. It really, our deficiencies equalize things. And so crisis knocks on everybody's door. Crisis doesn't play favorites. Crisis doesn't care about you, doesn't respect you. Sometimes it just shows up and it'll flip your world upside down. It might be a text message, a phone call, a diagnosis, a layoff, a bank balance. I don't know what crisis looks like for you, but it just shows up. Sometimes life just does things. And the fact that we are not enough gets brought to the forefront, gets brought to the surface. And so it would be easy for people like us in a room like this to look at the things we walk through and think, God, why did you make me deficient? And too often we point at the Creator and say, God, why did you make me deficient? Why is there a design flaw? Listen, it is not a designed flaw like a car is designed to need gas. It is a designed dependency. You were designed to be dependent on more of God. If you want to move forward, you need more of Jesus. Not just today, you need more tomorrow. And the day after, you need more than you get tomorrow. You need more every day. I need a little bit more today than I had yesterday. You are designed to be dependent on having more of Jesus. And so the encouraging thing for all of us today is that you're not enough. You're not enough. Doesn't matter what you have, doesn't matter who you have, the end of the day, your social class, your upbringing, your history, how you behave, how you believe, it's who you root for, you're not enough. And neither am I. We all have a deficiency. We're all designed to be dependent on Jesus. And this is the thing. As we watch Jairus and our woman, we see that deficiency does something to people. It makes them desperate. They're desperate. What I like about desperation is you can't fake desperate. Like when someone's desperate, you know they're desperate. We know Jairus is desperate. Think about Jairus for a minute. He's coming through the crowd to get to Jesus. They both need to get to Jesus, but it's not like Jairus just comes up to one of the disciples and says, hey, is he busy next Thursday? I'd like to make an appointment if I could. No. Hey, I got to get to Jesus. Pushing his way through I need to get to the teacher. My daughter's dying. This is urgent. I'm desperate. I've got nowhere else to go. I've got no one to turn to. I have to get to the teacher. Pastor Jairus, I was just wondering if we could talk about the Trinity. I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around it. Also, I have a fungus on my left leg, and I was offended by your sermon last week. Shut up! I've got got to get to Jesus. I love you, but this is more important. He's got to get to Jesus. This is a desperate man. His daughter is dying, and he has no answer, no ideas, no solution, no way out. He has to get to Jesus. She's desperate too. She's trying to keep a lower profile, of course, because she's been banned from community. And so if anybody knows that this woman, like if she tries to work her way through the crowd and she touches somebody and they recognize her, she'll be condemned. At best, she'd be locked up. And so you've got this woman who has no business being in a crowd of people, yet there's something that happens in somebody when you're hopeless and hope personified is like on the other side of the street. You're not just going to sit there and let yourself keep rotting and hemorrhaging. You're going to do whatever it takes to get to the other side so you can reach out and just touch hope. And so she starts to push her way through the crowd. I love that she just got, like, she's not caring about what people think because desperate people don't. She's not worried about who's watching because desperate people don't even think about that. Desperate people do desperate things at desperate times. And she pushes through the crowd. Like, what's the worst that can happen? She touches somebody, they lock her up. She doesn't care. She's been imprisoned by her illness for the last 12 years. Like, being locked up is just free room and board for this woman. She's going to get to Jesus. It's crazy to me how sometimes God will allow you to get to the end of yourself so you can come to the beginning of Him. It's so true that your finish line is going to be God's starting line for everything that He wants to unpack and do in your life. When you're ready to throw in your towel, God's just getting started. He's not done with either of these people yet, but they have clearly come to the end of their own options and their own strength. They're desperate. They're desperate. And so we have two radically, incredibly, overwhelmingly different people brought to the same place, assuming the same posture. They're at the feet of Jesus. It's a posture of worship. They're worshiping. They come before Jesus, and it's a posture of worship. Worship is simply the admission that you're God and I'm not. Worship is the admission that, like, hey, I've got needs. I'm not complete. I don't have enough in and of myself. That's worship. And there's something about a desperate worship that separates the spectators from the participators. Something about a desperate worship. I mean, these people are desperate. I mean, you can come into a place like this and we can sing desperate lyrics like, I'm not enough. Oh. Different key. Hello. We can sing desperate lyrics, but you got to ask yourself, is it just lip service or is it actually the cry of my heart? Like, am I actually desperate? Do I actually know and understand that I'm incomplete without more of Jesus? Because, see, we know they're desperate because they don't have lights. They don't have a stage. They don't have a worship leader. They don't have a backup band. They don't have the lyrics on a screen. Because you can have those things and not worship. They don't have those things. They're desperate. They get to where Jesus is. And I feel like in this move for more season, we're not going to actually get more unless we're willing to be desperate. Your worship will position you for more of Jesus. And so the Bible tells me that we have access to abundant life, John 10:10 through Jesus. Abundant life, more life than we could ever imagine. Ephesians 3:20, that we could have immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine according to His power that is at work within us. If Jesus has promised me more, I cannot settle for less. I want to encourage you. This is a moving season for us. So if God has said there's more for you personally, there's more for you corporately, I've got more for the city, I see more salvation, I see more healing, I see more, then we're not going to be settled with like, oh, there were enough people in Canyon Meadows today. There were enough people in North Campus. There are enough people downtown. There's never enough. As long as there are people outside the walls of these gatherings that don't know Jesus, it's not enough. Are we going to stop because we've seen enough miracles? No, not if there are still sick people. No, because it's not enough. We can't stop and be settled for less when we were made for more. And so verse 26 says she had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind Him in the crowd and touched His cloak because she thought, if I just touch His clothes, I will be healed. See, She's seen all the doctors. She's spent all the money. In fact, they took advantage of her. She's been exploited by these medical professionals. Matthew's account of the story, so in Mark it says that she thought to herself that if I could only touch his cloak. I love how Matthew says, he says, she said to herself, if I could just touch his cloak, I'd be healed. If it wasn't important, it wouldn't be in there. So for some reason, they want us to know that how she thought, the things that she was saying to herself mattered. Do you know that what you say to yourself matters? Probably matters more than what you think it does. See, her self-talk was important. Your self-talk is important. There's a chance that the discouragement you're feeling is coming from the narrative that's running around in your own mind. You are the most discouraging voice you're listening to. There's a good chance that the worry you feel on the inside is only being built on and perpetuated by the things you are telling yourself. The way you're predicting probable like outcomes. And no. You're talking to yourself. The lies you believe. For most of us, the lies we believe, we haven't even heard from anywhere else. We're just saying them to ourselves. That's your voice talking to you. The lie that you're not good enough, the lie that God doesn't care, the lie that the church has overlooked you, that you don't belong, that nobody appreciates you, that you can't get out of your situation, that it's never going to change, that there's not a hope in the future. Those lies, even if you've heard them from someone else at some point, you've been reciting them to yourself over and over and over again until they feel like truth. This woman had been listening to the lies in her head for 12 years, but then all of a sudden she said to herself, something shifted. She came to the end. She said, man, if I could just touch him. Now here's what's important. She's not ignoring her reality. It's true that she's been bleeding for 12 years. That's true. It's also true that Jesus is a healer. So we've got to have the wherewithal I'm not talking about positive confession or positive thing. No. You can be positive that you're going through crisis right now. But what I'm talking about is knowing enough about what God says about you that you can take His truth and you can superimpose it over the truth you're experiencing. Yes, I've been bleeding for 12 years, but the greater truth, it's both, everybody. It's not one or the other. The greater truth is that God is a healer. I don't know what you're facing, but the greater truth is that you're an overcomer. The greater truth is that you're loved. The greater truth is that He's going to take care of you like He always has. You're protected. He heals. He's bringing freedom. He's bringing deliverance. He's bringing reconciliation and restoration. You got to take the greater truth and start saying the greater truth into your situation. What's the greater truth? What are you saying to yourself? What words are you saying to you? Immediately, her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from Him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, who touched my clothes? This is a very nice Jewish robe. Who touched it? The disciples are like, yo, Jesus, relax. Chill. They say, like, you see the people crowding against you. How can you possibly ask who touched me? They're like, Jesus, everybody's touching you. There's people everywhere. He's like, no. Somebody touched me. And see, there's a difference because you've got people, there's people who crowd and there's people who touch. Are you going to be a person who comes and just crowds around Him, or are you going to be a person who's desperate enough to reach out and touch Him? Because see, Jesus knows. He felt something come out of Him. It wasn't just the hustle and bustle and the congestion of the crowd. Somebody reached out in faith. Your faith has a fingerprint. Jesus knows your faith. He recognizes your faith. There's something that separates this woman. Her faith has expectation. Her faith has a need attached to it, and He recognizes it. Listen, when you pray, right now in the planet, maybe there's hundreds of millions of people praying to God, but the beautiful thing is that He has the capacity to know that if you stop right now and reach out to Him, then your faith will leave a fingerprint. Your request doesn't get piled up on a stack of to be addressed later when I have time by God. You have immediate access to Him because of your faith. He knows exactly who's praying that prayer. He knows exactly how unique your situation is. He knows exactly what the need is, and He knows exactly how He's going to get you you through it. When you pray, he hears you. Your faith is that specific to him. So he knows that he's been touched by the woman, but she hides. Why? She's afraid. She's afraid. She's now just reached out and touched a Jewish man wearing Jewish clothes in a Jewish community who understands Jewish law, which according to that law, if she touches him, she should be locked up at best. And so you've got this woman. Jesus is there. He's available. But for some reason in her heart, she doesn't think he's approachable. Like he's right there, but I can't let him see me. She doesn't reveal herself at first. See, the problem is she's been carrying her shame for too long. She's exhausted herself trying to fix her problems. She's been exploited. She's hemorrhaging not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well. This woman has been carrying guilt and loneliness and insecurity and fear for more than a decade. No wonder she cowers a little bit. She knows he's close, but she's not sure that he'll accept her. Like, if I actually show him who I am, is he going to reject me? Is he going to condemn me? Is he going to push me away? There are people in the room right now, and you are looking at Jesus the same way. You're here, so he's accessible. You see that he's there, but it's like if I really tell him who I am, if I really get honest, if I really open myself up, is he going to reject me? Is he going to condemn me? Surely he's not going to accept me. Surely there's going to be judgment. Surely he's going to push me away. Surely after what I've done, there's no way that Jesus would be okay with me reaching out to touch him. Check out verse 32. It says, but Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. He knew he was giving her the chance to look to him. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. Oh man, I love this. Imagine the moment just for a second. You've got thousands of people crowding around. It's busy, it's congested, it's a little crazy. But it's like time stands still for just these two people, for this woman. When she gets to the feet of Jesus and he turns, and it's like the whole crowd fades into the distance. They're there, but she doesn't even notice them because he looks at her and says the one thing she's been waiting for 12 years. Daughter. He calls her daughter. This is possessive and protective language. When nobody wanted to admit that they were with her, and nobody for over a decade was willing to reach out and protect her and cover her and give her a safe place and be there for her in the middle of a crowd when it should have gone a different way, when she should have been locked up, the Son of Man looks at her and says, daughter. Almost like it's for everyone to see. Hey, everybody. I want you to notice the people that you push away, the ones that you isolate, the ones that you cut off, the ones that you say aren't good enough. They're mine. She's mine. She's my daughter. Not only is she mine, but I'm here to protect her. I'm here to cover her. And in a moment, she gets so much more than what she thought. She didn't just get her healing. She got her redemption and her restoration. She got her dignity back in a moment. Jesus looks at her and he affirms her identity, and then he approves her faith. Your faith. Your faith. It's possessive, protective. While Jesus was still speaking, some of the people from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader, came and said, your daughter is dead. Why bother the teacher anymore? Man, the tension of these two moments. On one side, you've got a woman who just received more than she dreamed possible. On the other side, you've got a man who has just been given a death notice. Your daughter didn't make it. She didn't live. What would Jairus be thinking in this moment? I mean, he came to Jesus first. He was a man of good reputation. He served in the synagogue. Jesus was on his way to his house, and this woman cut in. I mean, this doesn't seem fair. There's no way this should happen. And Jairus is forced to watch while a strange woman gets a miracle and his daughter, her whole life in front of her, passes away. Man, it's not easy to watch somebody else get a miracle while you're still waiting for yours. It's not easy to watch somebody else's child get saved when you've been praying for your adult kid for 25 years. It's not easy to watch somebody get pregnant and you've been praying and going through treatments and trying everything possible for a decade. It's not easy to watch somebody take another vacation when you've been struggling to pay the bills. And sometimes God will allow us to observe a miracle because He's training and conditioning our character to be able to handle the weight of ours. This is training ground for Jairus. He's watching the miracle because God is making sure, Jairus, you've got to be able to celebrate what I do in somebody else's life before I can release the fullness of my power in yours. You've got to be able to see and witness and testify about other miracles before I can give you your miracle. Jairus, can you really handle it? And can I encourage you? Jesus does not have a miracle limit. Right? Just because somebody got theirs doesn't mean you're not going to get yours. Exceeding abundantly above all that you can ask or imagine. He doesn't have like, okay, I've got 6. It's early, it's Sunday. I've got 6 miracles to give to EC today. You and you. Not you, you haven't been praying long enough. Not you, you don't give in the offering. You and you. No. There is no capacity for His miraculous power. If He did it for one person, let that build your faith that your miracle is still on the way. He does not give up. He's not calling it quits. He doesn't pack it in. He doesn't grow tired. He's still engaged in your process. Let's just talk about Jairus' friends for a second. Anybody else have those friends that just come with the facts? You got facts friends. You're right, your marriage does look like a train wreck. Want to go to a movie? Yep, certainly can't afford that, but yeah, it's rough. Hey, Jairus, your daughter's dead. I like faith friends. No, I don't want friends that ignore the facts. But I want some people, okay, fine. If you've got to, lead with the bad news. Lead with the facts. But then follow it up with some faith talk. I want to get around some faith talk people. I don't mind if you come to me and say, hey, listen, it doesn't look good right now, Jairus. From everything we can tell, she's dead, but we know you invited Jesus, and He hasn't come yet. So maybe we just ought to get him to the house to see what happens. You need some people who say, yeah, I see it doesn't look good right now, but we're going to be praying, and we're going to be fasting. We're believing for a miracle in your life. You need to get some faith people around you. His friends make 2 critical mistakes. There are 3 facts that they present. Only one is correct. They say she's dead. She was dead. That's true. Then they say, don't bother the teacher. There's 2 mistakes in that phrase. Number 1, they consider Jesus to be nothing more than a teacher. That's the mistake. Don't underestimate who Jesus is and what He's capable of, because He is so much more than a teacher. We're talking about the God of the universe, the crown prince of heaven, who showed up on planet Earth, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. They are taking the one who heals and the one who, He is the resurrection and the life. He's right there. And they're saying, He's a teacher. They're getting their facts wrong. He's so much more than a teacher. Then they say, don't bother Him. Don't bother Him. Don't bother. Think about that. Don't bother, like you're an inconvenience for Jesus. How does your situation compare with the inconvenience of the cross? Like you can bother Him? No. Let's remember who we're talking about here. Gave up all of the glory of heaven to come down to earth to have relationship with you. Willingly went to the cross. That's inconvenient and it's uncomfortable. Did it so He could have relationship with you. This is Him. You don't bother Him. He came to be bothered. He came to be interrupted. He interrupted the timeline of history so that you could have intimate access to Him. He came for that. It says, overhearing what they said, Jesus told them, don't be afraid, just believe. He did not let anyone follow Him except for Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all the commotion and wailing? The child is not dead but asleep." They laughed at him. They laughed at him. They laughed at him. See, they laughed at him. Scripture tells us that Jesus heard their laughter, then he put them out. You know why? Because they couldn't occupy the same space that he was getting ready to do a more miracle. So I want to ask you, what do you need to get rid of so that you make room for the more of Jesus? Do you need to like kick fear out? Do you need to kick comparison out? Do you need to kick worry out? Listen, and it's not that those things are never going to show up, but you can trump those things with what God says is true about you. He says, I've got to get rid of some things if the miracle's going to happen. Then he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went to where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, Talitha cum, which means, little girl, I say to you, get up. Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. I finish with this. You've got a woman who suffered for 12 years. You've got a little girl who was 12 years old. Same duration of time. Why is that important? Well, because they had a different journey. They had different beginnings. They had a different process. They had different needs. But over time, they ended up at the exact same place, which was in a spot where they needed more of Jesus. I don't know what your journey has been. I don't know what your story is. I don't know if you're just beginning your faith search right now or you've been on the journey for a long time. I don't know how many crises you've had to navigate. I don't know what your motivation was for stepping into this room today. But I do know one thing for certain, that all of us are deficient without Christ. All of us need more of Jesus to move forward. All of us need to be desperate enough that we'd separate ourselves from the crowd and reach out with our faith and grab hold of the hem of his garment and say, Jesus, I cannot do this without you. Every single person. I'd like you to bow your head with me and close your eyes. We